Are we
Good
on?
evening, everyone, and
Woohoo.
welcome to tonight's session, part of SingSeptember, an evening with Midtown. I'm Alan Hughes, and I'm delighted, if not a little bit starstruck, to get to hang out with these very talented gentlemen tonight. Before we start, I'd like to encourage everyone watching to interact with us and ask questions. You can post questions in the YouTube live chat or comment on the Facebook link, and I'll do my best to pose them to the guys. Okay, so to briefly introduce the group, Midtown formed in the spring of 2018 and quickly became their district champions after just one rehearsal. Soon after, they qualified for the BHS International Quartet Contest in 2019 and came away with a fifth place bronze medal. The quartet is well known for their amazing music videos, one of the first quartets to produce videos to such a high quality, and also for their performances, which show off their talent as vocalists and as performers. Furthermore, we are absolutely thrilled that they will be our headline guest act at our BABS convention in May 2021. So I'm delighted to introduce Nick Gordon on tenor, Anthony Fortino on lead, Christian O'Neill Diaz on bass, and KJ McAleese-Jurgens on baritone. Welcome, guys. Good evening.
Woohoo.
What's up?
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us. The eagle-eyed amongst you as well might have noticed an imposter in the ranks, a man who needs almost no introduction, and is Midtown's coach, none other than Tim Warwick. How are you doing, Tim?
Good. How are you?
Great, thank you. Yeah, really good. Really excited to be here.
Good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So let's start. I thought we'll start with getting to know the four of you a little better. So starting with you, Nick. Now, I first remember hearing you as a baritone in the quartet Prestige, where you won the collegiate contest back in 2011, after a couple of years. And that was with none other than Drew Ochoa on lead, who's gone on to achieve such amazing things too. Can you briefly describe your barbershop quartet journey since then, Nick?
Since then, okay, so after we won in Kansas City in 2011, I went to Florida to do a seasonal contract with the Voices of Liberty for the Christmas season. And my roommate was none other than this gentleman right here. And it was his first contract there as well. And, you know, we had known each other for a few years before that, but that was when we really got to know each other and became really close. And we decided like, hey, you know, you're not doing anything. Prestige is kind of done. So let's, you know, we're still young enough. So let's try to compete in the college contest and see what we can do. And so we were lucky enough to get second place in 2013 in Toronto, and then again in 2014 in Las Vegas. And so then shortly after that, Gary Lewis and Puck Ross called me up. It's like, hey, we're trying this new quartet with Chris Vaughn, and we are looking for a baritone. Do you want to try? And I said, yeah. I auditioned, and it was going to be really cool to sing with my mentor, Gary Lewis. He was my choir director. He's the one who introduced me to barbershop, and you know, just put me on this path that has completely taken over my life and made it so blessed and so awesome. And so that was a really awesome experience. I got in, and we competed for about 3 years, and we finished. Well, I finished with getting fifth place in 2017. And then shortly after, I left that quartet. And then similarly, I got a call from KJ, but instead of offering me to sing baritone, he's like, hey, can you do tenor? And I was like, I will try my best. And a few years later, here we are.
There you go. And I think you're doing an okay job, Nick. I think you're doing okay. So I happened to bump into you, Nick, a few years ago when I was in New York City, and I learned you were studying vocal pedagogy at New York University. So I just wanted to check in and see how is your career as a professional vocalist going, and what are you up to outside of barbershop nowadays?
Well, as of right now, it's not going pretty much anywhere, unfortunately.
Well, okay.
But since then, I have been slowly gaining voice students from my private voice studio here in Hoboken, New Jersey. And I have done a few regional shows and a few workshops of musicals in the city. And that's pretty much it. And Midtown's been taking up a lot of my creative energy, which is great, and time. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'm kind of on hiatus until, you know, Broadway and other shows start back in production.
Yeah, and hopefully that will be soon, as soon as it's safe to do so. I think a lot of us are missing that world at the moment. So yeah, awesome. So thank you, Nick. So you mentioned Prestige won the collegiate contest in Kansas City, which takes us nicely on to our lead singer, Anthony, who hails from Kansas City, or very near Kansas City, I believe. So
Yeah,
I
great
understand.
transition.
Thank you. Thanks. I understand you are no stranger to barbershop, Anthony, having been introduced to it at a very young age. Can you introduce us to your barbershop pedigree, first of all?
Yeah, absolutely. My first international convention was when I was 2 months old in Calgary, Canada. My dad started singing barbershop when he was in high school, and then sang through my youth, and still is competing. He sings in the quartet called Harmonium. So they're still competing every year. But when I was growing up, he was in a quartet called 12th Street Rag. That was perennial, and internationals was there for, I think they went, 15 straight years or something like that in the top 20. So I grew up at the international convention. That was my first experience to barbershop, just performing of any kind. I joined the Heart of America chorus in the Central States District when I was 7. And so I started singing with them, and that's how I got my performing and singing start. For my 5th birthday, the only thing I wanted was a pair of Tux shoes. So I was a barber shopper from a very young age.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So, and then obviously you've gone on, like you say, to do music professionally. So you hold, I'm right in thinking, a degree in theatre, and you've been on the national tour of the Broadway musical Fun Home. So,
Yes.
so that, tell us more about that, and tell us about how your barbershop background kind of helped you in your career as a professional.
Yeah, Alan, you're nailing the transitions. Like I have no idea. This is the first time for everyone watching. This is the first time I've met Alan, and I feel like I've known him for all my life. Because barbershop was one of the major reasons why I sort of had a natural proclivity to performing on stage and doing theater. I didn't get into theater until I was in high school, but I had a natural knack for it because I grew up performing and singing in front of very large audiences at the international competition. And I had a great ear because of barbershop, and my voice was fine. It wasn't very well trained, but I knew how to, hold a tonal center, and I could read music, which was better than, most other high school boys in choir, right? And so because of that, it lent itself to being decent at it, and I fell in love with it and kept pursuing it. So yeah, I got my degree in theater down at TCU, Texas Christian University, in the Dallas area in Texas. And then also got degrees in accounting as well, for the other side of the brain, which is why I'm dressed like this in an office here. This is not backstage at a theater anywhere, if you couldn't tell. So yeah, so I got into theater, and that's why how I found my way to New York City, and then found myself on that tour, which was awesome. I met Nick in New York City as well at Voices of Gotham, the chorus here, before I went on tour when I first moved to the city. Then I left, did the tour for a year and a half, came back to New York, and showed back up to rehearsal. And then 2 weeks later, Nick sent me a message, because it had been like a week after he got the message from KJ, and he happened to see me back in town. And him and I, we'd had a couple conversations maybe, but he knew what I was up to. And so I had never sung lead before at all, ever. I had always sung tenor, and I sang bass with some of my cousins early on. So he said, "Hey, do you want to sing in a quartet?" And here we are.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So that explains why you hit some of those high notes in songs like "Death of a Bachelor." If you were
yes, yeah, tenor, yeah, tenor is what I'm used to.
That's awesome. And do you do the quartet's accounts for them as well then? So they're very
Yes,
to do that.
yes,
Okay.
that's my contribution. The rest of these guys are much more creative than I am. I really don't think I'm very creative, so I take care of the numbers, and that's my contribution.
I think a lot of people would disagree with you there, but that's cool. So moving on then to the bass, Christian. Hi, Christian. I believe you hail from sunny Miami down in Florida, and you also have a degree in the performing arts, this time in jazz studies. Now, the Sunshine District especially has such a huge heritage when it comes to barbershop, starting with the Suntones way back in the day, and more recently, Main Street, Signature, lots of talented groups down there. How did you first get into barbershop?
Well, speaking of the Suntones, Gene Cockcroft, I lived 20 minutes down the road from Gene Cockcroft, and I didn't even know it until I found Barbershop. But he started all these youth camps down in South Florida, and one of the first people he brought into the art form was Paul Saka, who then brought in Will Rodriguez from Signature, who then brought in Eddie Mejia, and I met Eddie Mejia, who's the tenor of Sunny Boys and Studio 4. I met him sophomore year of high school, and he introduced me. He tried me out on baritone originally, and I could not hear the part to save my life. But then he already had a bass, but he had me sing bass, and when I sang bass, he then kicked out his current bass and put me in that slot. So I still feel bad about that to this day, but here we are. So I came up through that whole South Florida line around those guys. The Rubin brothers were a big influence on me as well. I then met Tony DeRosa at a Sunshine District. He introduced me to Voices of Liberty and Dapper Dans at Disney World, and that's how I kind of found that world out. But like you said, I went off to college in Michigan, and I got a degree in jazz studies after that. So.
In Kalamazoo.
In Kalamazoo.
Oh wow. It's named after the famous song or the famous gal.
Yeah, that's where I got my degree.
There you go. Now you've got the job that I'm sure many barbershoppers think is the dream job. You work at Disneyland as a Dapper Dan and sing with the Voices of Liberty. I think everyone in the barbershop world is probably highly envious of you for landing that job. So how did you get that job, and what's it like getting to work in Disney? Obviously in normal times, not at the moment when the park is closed, but that must be an amazing job, right?
Yeah, no, I'm very honored and blessed to be a part of that heritage. The Dapper Dans have been around in Disneyland since the park opened and they moved over to Disney World. And I was introduced to those groups by Tony DeRosa. I really had no idea they existed, even growing up in Miami, 4 hours away from Disney World. I think I'd gone to Disney maybe once or twice in my childhood. So I had no idea who they were until Tony mentioned them to me, that they were going to have auditions. And so I followed the audition process. I went through that whole thing, and I was blessed enough to make it. Yeah, it's just an honor getting to sing with those guys, in front of the castle or at Epcot, or, you have to pinch yourself every once in a while. Just make sure it's still real.
I can imagine. That's awesome. So moving on to final member, baritone KJ. Now KJ, your face is very familiar here in the UK. Excuse me, because you came over here a few years ago with your legendary group Lunch Break. Now you're known here for being in a comedy quartet, but your musical pedigree, it's certainly no joke. So you're a multi-instrumentalist. It's sung for many years with the United States Army National Guard and been on tour with them. So amongst all that, amongst that musical heritage, how did you come across barbershop amongst all that touring and crazy music stuff?
Technology, look at that. Sorry. Yeah, so when I grew up in a very musical family. My dad was a professional drummer and my mom was a professional singer in the country rock world. And so I was always around music my whole life. And my sophomore year of high school, I was in a musical called Paint Your Wagon. Mm-hmm. And my character was Julio Federico Juan Valenzuela Valvarez.
That's a name harder to pronounce than your actual name.
Yes. And I was this little redhead, freckle-faced kid playing this Hispanic guy in Paint Your Wagon, and it was amazing. But anyway, part of that musical, we were at a cast party, and an older couple came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, we loved seeing you in the musical. Have you ever sung barbershop?" And I said, "No, I've never sung barbershop at all." And they said, "Well, if you guys want, you guys can come over to our place. We're having another party after this." And so I showed up, and they handed me some sheet music to Hello Mary Lou and taught me the melody line, and I started singing. And 4 people started singing, or 3 other people started singing with me. And it was the first time I'd heard 4-part harmony, and the chords exploded around me, and I was addicted from then on. So me and Alan G and Druin, who were the couple that invited me, and then one other guy named Elmer, we formed a quartet called Freckles and His Friends. And I was Freckles, yes. And so we, that was my first introduction to barbershop with the Nevada Placer chapter. It was a little chapter of like 15 guys in a median age of 75. And the chorus name was the Sierra Naders from the Sierra Mountains. So nice. Best chorus name I've ever heard. But, so I sang with that quartet through high school, and I was heavily involved in choir, and we sang in a very big choir program in my high school. We had like 4,000 students in the school. So our program was very involved and very big. So I was very blessed to be a part of that. But yeah, as you said, when I joined the Army, I was able to really dive into the music world of the Army, tour as a vocalist for the Soldier Show, and then as a music director, and then joined the band field and did all that jazz. But I didn't sing barbershop from once I graduated high school all the way till I was 26, 27, something like that. And I moved to Nashville. And when I moved to Nashville, I didn't even know that the headquarters was there. I literally walked to downtown Nashville, walked right by the headquarters, like, oh, what a cool gate. It's got like a music lyre thing on it. That's pretty cool. I had no idea that was the barbershop headquarters. And anyway, I looked up one day if there was a chorus and found the Music City chorus was there. And I'd never been to a convention, never been to any kind of barbershop contest or anything. And at that time, lunch break, their original baritone, Drew Ellis, had to step away because he was getting busy with work and changing his life up a little bit. And so I subbed on a few gigs with them, and then they eventually asked me to be the baritone. And I went to my first convention in 2011 with Lunch Break and got to mic test with them. And that was my baptism by fire into the barbershop world. And, wow. Since then it's been a whirlwind, that's for sure. So.
Yeah. So it's a small world really, because so your first convention, you would have seen Nick winning with Prestige.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. In Anthony's
crazy.
Hometown. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Crazy.
It's all coming together. It's all.
Sure is. That's really cool. So thank you, KJ. And last but not least, let's talk to someone I'm sure we all recognize, your primary coach, I believe, Mr. Tim Warwick. So Tim, how are you? And first of all, when did you start working with Midtown, and how have you found the experience so far?
Well, I started working with Midtown back in September of 2018. That was our first time together. And it was one of those things where they said, hey, would you come up and coach? And I was like, so how long? Like a couple hours or something like that? Because most quartets, just do like a 2-3 hour coaching session type thing. And KJ was like, all day. We'll just like start in the morning at like 10 a.m. and you can stay overnight and we're just going to go. And it literally was what happened. Like it was like this marathon day where we coached and they sang. And so, I left early and started at like 10 a.m. and we literally went all day. And so it was one of those moments when, though, I had heard Midtown, and I think I can say this for everybody that's eventually going to hear Midtown at BABS. It's one thing to hear them on a recording. I heard Come Back to Me. I knew they were great. I was friends with all of them. But then the first time they opened their mouths and sang for me, and I was just a few feet away, I was absolutely blown away by just that awesome sound. And then, I knew Anthony as a tenor and just as a kid growing up, because I lived in St. Louis for most of Anthony's childhood. So I wasn't too far away, and did some shows with Anthony's dad's quartet. Anthony's dad, Mark, sang in 12th Street Rag and many other quartets. And so got to know Anthony there. So when Anthony was singing lead, it was one of those moments where it was like, wow, this is like a really special lead voice. And I just remember thinking the quartet in itself was amazing. And then to see their work ethic and how quickly they responded to what was asked, it was was pretty spectacular for me as a coach to get to experience that with these guys, because they're really quick and they're pros.
And I set you up there to tease them and say horrible things about them, and you didn't take that opportunity. You
Well, I'll do that.
Genuinely
now,
nice things.
I wanted to lead with something nice, but now I'm happy to talk about how horrible they are.
Suckers.
Who do I start with? KJ? I start with KJ, right?
There you go. So thanks, Tim. And so now we've got all the individual introductions out of the way. I've had a couple of quick questions come in on the YouTube video. So one of them, obviously, we've got guys living down in Florida and guys in New York and spread apart. So how often do you rehearse, and how do you manage your rehearsals?
We try to rehearse at least once a month. Depending on the time of year, depending on the schedule. And, you know, we rehearsed together for a year and a half before we ever even, you know, actually competed at the competition. So we didn't have show weekends. We didn't have any kind of side opportunities to use that time to rehearse. So every rehearsal that we had to buy flights and come together and make time with our families and work and everything in between. So it was every month and a half, sometimes every 2 months, but we really try to do every month. And our rehearsal weekend is usually very jam-packed because of that. We go pretty hard all day for 2 or 3 days straight to really cement the work that we do that weekend. That way, when we don't see each other for another month and a half, everything that we work on that weekend is just ingrained into our bones. So we try to push ourselves really hard during rehearsals, and we do a lot of self-coaching. We do a lot of duetting. We do a lot of we record ourselves and listen back, and you know, so there's a lot of techniques and methods that we do to try to maximize the time we have together. And bringing in Tim is a big part of that. There's an exponential difference between a Midtown weekend when it's just us and a Midtown weekend when we have Tim with us. And the progress we're able to make and the feedback we get from Tim and the guidance that and the way he steers us, it's just such a more productive weekend for us. And we couldn't be more blessed and thankful to have him when he's able to come to those weekends. And thankfully he's only a couple hours away, so we're able to do that every once in a while, which is nice. So
that's awesome. Thank you. And thank you to Andy Funnell for that question.
Andy.
Yeah, you know Andy Funnell. Yeah,
I love Andy.
I think it's fair to say that your rise to barbershop stardom has been pretty meteoric. So I said most quartets usually make a splash at their first international and then build from there. With you guys, it seemed that you made a splash well before international had even happened, and you kind of you arrived at international with already people talking about you guys and excited to hear you, which was a pretty exciting thing. Was it fun to be in that position in 2019, or did you find it high pressure, or how did you feel going into it?
Yeah, I'll speak to that first. I think it was definitely fun. And obviously we were very, very excited that people knew who we were going into the international competition. Part of that was what we wanted, right? And when we formed in 2018, we technically could have, tried to qualify to go to internationals in Orlando and just go, but we wanted purposefully to take time to establish our presence, our identity prior to showing up. We wanted people to figure out who we were before we went to internationals, which is fairly unconventional. And there's a number of reasons why we did that, but ultimately that's what we wanted to do, right? Coming out with some videos and establishing an online presence, before showing up. And we also wanted time to get arrangements that were our own and do everything else. So coming in with people, talking about us was I don't want to call it the plan, it was our hope, but what it also did though was, yes, pressure was a lot. We had a lot of pressure, but to be honest, it was less of pressure from other people and more about the pressure that we then put on ourselves. I don't think anyone really expected anything, right? I think people were, if anything, just like, oh, I would love to see these people who I've seen online. I'd love to hear them in person. And we had unbelievable expectations that we put on our own selves, that Tim had to sort of slap out of us. But I can tell you in the first round, we all walked on stage just shaking. We were, myself, the most unbelievably nervous. So yes, we were very excited that some people knew who we were, but we were also incredibly nervous, a lot of pressure that we were just putting on ourselves, feeling like we had to like meet some sort of standard that really was all in our own heads. But it was a very fun week. It was very fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Alan, I'll tell you the story. This is the
Okay.
good story. This is the story from Salt Lake City. So the first round happened, and and we all knew they were wound pretty tight. Like it was like, okay, we gotta be everything that everybody always wanted us to be. And I kept telling them, I was like, there's no way, because the expectations by so many people, but especially yourselves, are so high. You can't try to meet those. So the next day we were getting ready for the semifinals, and man, they were just in their heads again. Like, I'm like, this is crazy. And at one point they were like, it was to the point where they couldn't like tune a chord. Like they were just, every chord was like, they're getting angry and angrier. And I was like, all right, everybody follow me. And I just literally walked out in the front yard. I was like, we're going to take a walk. We're going to go stand outside. We're going to get the sun. We're just going to like get some fresh air, and we're going to come back in, and we're going to let go of all that. And then we're going to sing. And I think that actually might've helped quite a bit, because it sort of changed the mindset. And I think from that, I kind of like gave him this little like pep talk, but it was sort of like, things are going to be okay. Like, you're going to be great. You guys have rehearsed forever. You're awesome. Like, you have nothing to worry about. So just stop worrying. And I think from there, I do feel like it started that process of just getting more comfortable with not just who you were as a quartet, but being on stage in front of that large audience. So it's been pretty cool.
I got another little story that's right after that one. We had just sat in the call off, and we were singing 10th in the finals. The next day we wake up, we go have brunch. Mind you, I've never competed in the big boy contest. I've only ever done collegiate, and here we are in our first international. We're singing 10th on the finals. I'm supposed to be trying to do a 35-40 second post. And I literally had to get up from brunch and say, I'm going to go to the restroom really quick. And I walked around the block that the restaurant was on probably 2 or 3 times. I called my friend, and I felt sick to my stomach, just like nauseous, say, please talk me down. Because that was the amount of pressure that we had put on ourselves, and that I had put on myself. Especially in that, just the way that the dominoes fell,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that pressure came from the fact that when we went into internationals, we thought for sure we had no expectations of grandeur, of doing anything significant. We, in our minds, we were like, let's make the 20. That would be awesome. If by some chance we make the 10, my goodness, what a freaking cloud 9 moment that would be. And so we had like, but everybody just was talking and how these expectations and stuff. And I remember we were sitting during the call off in the semifinals, and Christian just had his head buried in the seat in front of him. We were just waiting for the call off to see if, and they called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and they still hadn't said our name. And we were like, well, hey guys, we made the 20. That's great. This is a success. Good job. And when they called the 10, it was just like our minds exploded, because we never in our wildest dreams would have thought that kind of is where we would have ended up. So it was a definite mind roller coaster that week. That is for sure.
And Christian probably thought, oh crap, now I have to sing that 40-second post in that song.
And I hadn't, we had sung that song throughout the
Oh,
week,
yeah.
rehearsing it. We had sung it at an outdoor event the first day of the convention, and I had yet to hit the post. That was the first time in a live performance I hadn't done it. And it was partly nerves, it was partly altitude. I mean, I'm from South Florida, as we mentioned earlier, you know, at sea level or in points below sea level. And I'm not used to that. So there was just all these factors that were playing in. But yeah.
That's so cool. It's as a more kind of averagely talented singer myself, it's great to hear that the best in the business can still get nervous and get pressured, and I suppose it happens to all of us in different ways. But yeah, it's kind of heartening to hear for us mere mortals. So we've established you're all really kind of well qualified as singers. In terms of all your degrees and performers, do you find that you approach barbershop music differently to what you've learned in your degrees and your training and professional experience, or do you feel like you approach it like any other barbershop quartet would? And I suppose, does your professional training help you as a quartet, and how?
I'll take it, and then I'll let Nick speak to a little bit too. It's a great question. I think that it's a little bit of both, and it's definitely a balance. It's definitely something that we struggle with a lot, both internally and with coaches. So because we all have that training, when we're attacking the interp of a song, we tend to want to sing it, you know, whether it's musical theater style or classical, where the focus is on the lyric. So we tend to want to tumble through passages, but there's a balance in barbershop where there's a lot of times where there are chords that are thrown in that are meant to be held. And the holding of a chord may not make sense lyrically. I don't know if that makes sense, right? But like if you're singing Heart of My Heart or something, which is, I'm just using a random example, like Heart of My Heart, I love you. If that heart chord is purposely arranged as a chord to be held by the arranger, you would never say it that way. But in this context of barbershop, it's better to do that. And so we find ourselves struggling with our own selves of what's the right way to do it. Do we honor the arranger's intent with the way that this chord is structured, or do we follow these other instincts of honor the lyric? And there's never a right answer. So I would say more than anything, that proves to be a challenge to ourselves of figuring out, you know, what's the right way to do it. And it always ends up in, you know, constructive conversation. But from that standpoint, I think that presents something interesting. And then Nick, I'll let you speak to pedagogically how barbershop is different, if at all, from all the other singing that we do.
Yeah, not so much maybe just like how we produce the sound, but it's also, you know, just how we sing, like especially like the turning of the vowels. Because with every other kind of vocal practice that's not a cappella, you have a band or some kind of orchestra to back you up to fill the holes. So you don't sing, like you don't have the connected sound. Like in any other medium, it would sound so weird. But in barbershop, that's just how you have to do it, because we only have 4 voices and we need that wall of sound. And so it's also picking and choosing when to turn that on and when to turn that off. Because sometimes if you want to be super expressive, you need to have a little bit more of that speech-like kind of accent to your voice and approach. And so yeah, that just goes hand in hand, and it's a balance. Like Anthony said, there's no right or wrong. It's just you pick and choose when to do it to best serve not only the music, but also, you know, when you're in a barbershop contest, you have to know that you're in a barbershop contest. Like you have to play that game when you're in that arena. And so it's just picking and choosing when to do that.
Yeah, and I was watching a masterclass actually yesterday by Tony DeRosa on one of these live streams, and he spoke to the point that no matter what level you are, novice or expert, you know, there's always some level of working on the fundamentals, on the basics. You know, you're a duck on water. They're working, but they're gliding at the same time. But you always lead every single decision through artistry and through emotion. And I think that's the balance that Anthony was talking about, and just always never forgetting the fundamentals and where you come from, but always looking, thinking about how it's going to affect you and the audience emotionally.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know as well with in barbershop, certainly over the last 5 years, with the change in the judging categories from presentation to performance, I think that as well as what you're talking about being driven by the lyric is really important. And I wanted to ask you, with someone who's a professionally trained actor and who's toured as an actor as your lead singer, how I didn't actually want to ask Anthony a question. I wanted to ask you three, how do you make the most of having Anthony in your quartet? Do you kind of let him do his thing and try and imitate him, or is it an equal contribution from all of you? But must be an amazing position to have someone with such professional training as an actor in your quartet in these days.
It is. I'll go first. I think it's a balance. Like, we are so lucky that he just does things naturally that are so good, and also just, I mean, we're also very lucky that he came from barbershop too, so he knows both of those styles. But it's hard for, I would assume, him to really look at what he's doing from the outside and see, well, when should I do what, or what to pay attention to here. And so I think it's a balance, like, hey, you're doing great here, but on this passage, when we're all like homophonic, for example, we need a little more of that wall of sound, not so much of just the actor singing. And so I think, yeah, it's just both. We're just kind of keeping him, telling him what world or what room to be in when.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our decision making is based off of how Anthony feels it, but at the same time, when we're on stage and we're performing the song as a group, I think we all individually still have our sort of personal story that we're funneling the message through. Death of a Bachelor is one of them, where I think maybe Anthony, KJ, and me were kind of thinking some similar scenario, and Nick wasn't feeling that scenario.
Nope.
And that's okay. From the out, I mean, nobody knows in the audience what we're thinking in our heads. So as long as you can get the overall message across, and you're affecting the audience member how they want to be affected, it's fine. Whatever Anthony's story is, or whatever my story is, or Nick's story is.
As long as you're honest with yourself,
yeah,
I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, but when it does come to some interp stuff, dynamic stuff, whatever it may be, we do try and funnel those big picture decisions through Anthony's lens. What does he feel comfortable? How does he feel comfortable delivering this phrase? And then we kind of build off of that.
Sure, that makes sense. And Tim, I suppose you have a part to play in that. And I was going to ask you, when you mentioned before when you first went to coach a quartet and they sang and you were blown away by what you heard. And I know I've certainly been in that position when I've been asked to work with groups, and you think, oh God, I'm with these for the whole day, and they already sound this good. What are we going to work on for the next 12 hours? What was it, and what is it that you work on with them as a coach? What do you focus on, and how do you work together as a coach and quartet?
Sure. Well, it certainly was intimidating. You hear such a great group with accomplished singers, and you go, okay, well, we're going to see how this goes, and then they do it right away when you ask them, and then you go, okay, well, got to find more stuff to work on, and you build upon that. But there are numerous things that we work on. I teach Anthony the right notes to tags. He doesn't know any tags ever in barbershops. I don't coach them on anything that's singing. I just teach them tags. If you watch their Midtown Facebook Live sessions, you'll know that he learned all of his notes from me. But working with them, I mean, yeah, it is a challenge because, first of all, they all know what they're talking about. I mean, they're smart musicians and they're smart singers who are incredibly knowledgeable. So you go and you say, well, even the most knowledgeable singers need to work on the fundamentals. So sometimes we'll just hit fundamentals. Sometimes we'll say, yeah, some of these things just aren't happening. So let's go all the way back to basics and let's work on some vocal stuff. Let's get the voices lined up. And sometimes that'll take 20 minutes and sometimes it'll take 2 hours, depending on the day, how long it's been since they've been together or where people are at vocally. And so sometimes it'll just be, vocal technique stuff, just working on singing freely and locking into that sound. Other times it's just musicality, and sometimes it's even, visuals. Like I help KJ a lot with his visuals. So, right, KJ? I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, it really depends on the day. So, I mean, I really try to just watch from a holistic view and say, okay, where are they at right now, and what can they benefit from? And sometimes you don't want to hammer something into the ground. Like, you've worked on something, you've worked on it, and you've worked on it, and they're getting it, but maybe it's not 100%. So why stop every single time it happens when you could maybe find another concept to help improve? So that's part of it too. But a lot of it is just the basics. I heard somewhere that the best coaches work with people who are great at what they do on fundamentals. So, I mean, and that was, I think, a football coach, American football. Thanks. So that's really the main thing that we would do, that I would personally do, is just find those things. And sometimes it's nitpicky and sometimes it's overall things, but, a lot of little musical things here and there that, you might miss, or, and Anthony is amazing, but sometimes he may deliver a line in a way that he would do in a musical theater setting that doesn't come across in a quartet setting. And that's a balance too. And so you don't want them to sound like this all the time, but you also don't want them to be so speech-like or so musical theater-like that the chords don't ring at the maximum capacity. So you just find that balance. But they do it so well, and literally every time I ask something, it happens very quickly. And if it doesn't happen, they're very frustrated at themselves because they didn't get it. So it's incredible to work with such talented, smart, professional singers as the four of Midtown, including Christian.
Something I tell my students at school: to be successful, it requires a bit of talent and a lot of hard work. And it's
and on the hard work end of things, they do. I mean, like I said before, that all day thing isn't like, oh, we work 3 hours and then we go hang out and do stupid things. They rehearse all day, quick lunch, 30-40 minutes, back at it for another 3-4 hours, dinner maybe an hour, maybe we'll go out to dinner sometimes. Like go to like a Mexican place, by the way, which if I ate Mexican, I'd be trashed. But they come back and they sing even better. I don't know how that works, but I need some of that. And they'll work until 10 p.m. And then they'll go on Facebook Live and chat with their all the barbershoppers out there and their fans and sing tags and answer questions. So they love being together. They love singing and they love working hard. It's a really awesome quartet and awesome dynamic.
Yeah. That's amazing. And on the lighter side of things, you and Christian must have had a little contest to see who can post the longest.
He won. He blew me right out of the water. I tried, and he wins. I will say though, Christian, I have a special thing going. I love singing baritone with Christian. So whenever I see Christian, we sing like the somewhere tag and stuff like that. So I missed that. I haven't sang with Christian since February. So we need to make this happen soon.
There you go. So keeping it light, obviously you guys are coming over to the BABS convention in May. We're really excited to have you over here. And obviously KJ, you've experienced that convention before. Did you guys, when we approached you, KJ, what did you say to the guys to sit them down and say about what a BABS convention is like? Tim's been to a BABS convention obviously as well. They are a lot of fun. So yeah. What did you say?
I mean, I told the guys this when we first were asked by you all. I said, any convention we've been to, any barbershop event we've been to, there is nothing like a BABS convention. There's nothing like the kind of party that BABS puts on for 3 days straight. It's insane. And sleep is a thing of the past. And I couldn't say enough incredible things about BABS to them. And we were all unbelievably just through the roof that we were invited. So, but yeah, it's really hard to explain something like BABS to somebody and if they haven't experienced it themselves. So I can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and like I say, and Andy Funnell has said as well, sleep is not an option.
Oh yes, that's right.
Rates, yeah. The three of you guys, have you ever even been to the UK before, or will this be your first time in the UK as well?
I've never been across the pond.
Wow. Okay.
I've never been to Europe. Never been anywhere. I mean, I've been somewhere, but not.
I've never been in the UK. I've been to the Baltic states before on a choir tour, but that was the only place I've ever been to in Europe. So I'm excited to make it over there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've been to Italy, and I flew through Heathrow, but not ever been to the UK.
Heathrow's not the nicest part of the UK. I can
I
guarantee that. Yeah, but no, it's down by the seaside, and yeah, it's going to be a great weekend. So we're really looking forward to that. You hinted about it there with all the work that you do, and I'm sure you knew this question was coming, but your music videos that are just incredible, and it's really exciting to see a quartet doing that, and not only doing it, but doing it so well. We've had a shout out from a question in from someone about the BHS quartet contest, and I think they wanted to shout out the BABS quartet tagline because they're in that contest as well. And I just wanted to check if you guys watched Tagline's video, and what did you think? I know they've watched yours.
Yeah, I think we all watched it together at a rehearsal when it first came out, and it was awesome. It was so cool because it really, I mean, that's really the whole point of why we wanted to do this. The whole reason why we said in the beginning, we were like, we want to take barbershop and put it in a media format, like a music video that can take barbershop to different audiences and inspire other barbershoppers to take chances and take risks and try new things. And that was really our dream, was to see other quartets starting to try to make music videos like that. And so when we saw Tagline's video, and now, Half and Half has made some videos, and there's a bunch of quartets that have actually started making those types of music videos. It's been really, really rewarding, and it's awesome. And they're doing a killer job. It just brings nothing but joy to our hearts to see that stuff.
And Tagline's video was very professional. It was awesome. I speak highly enough of those guys. I met them in Orlando, and I'm sure they can tell you how just much praise I gave them. I saw them compete in the college contest. I'm a very big fan. Yeah,
we're really proud of them, and just like in you guys, their lead James is currently training in musical theatre, and he's doing amazing things, and and you can tell that he's put in that musical theatre training to good use in barbershop too, which is really, really exciting. So yeah, that's really cool.
For sure.
Another thing I wanted to ask that you guys do that kind of makes you stand out from the crowd is your use of beatboxing on your album. If you've not heard the album yet, guys, by the way, check it out because it's awesome. But quite a few of the songs on the album feature beatboxing, and like the Into the Unknown video has got two of the best beatboxers in the world on it. So is that something that you always set out, that you wanted to push the envelope in that way? And I mean, how did you get those two guys on the Into the Unknown video?
Well, first of all, we just wanted to make sure that no matter what kind of acapella we did, we wanted to be true to that kind of acapella. Like, we don't want to sound like a barbershop quartet doing jazz or contemporary acapella. So if we wanted to do something, we wanted to do it as genuinely as possible. And so when we think an arrangement or a song needs a contemporary acapella feel and beatboxing, we try to get like the real awesome people to do it. And we kind of just lucked into meeting them at this Sing Strong acapella camp in Long Island. Was it in February?
Mm-hmm.
I think. And we were the only barbershop act on the show, and it was like, I don't want to speak for all the guys, but I think I can confidently say one of, if not the best audiences we've ever performed for.
Oh yeah.
Like, all the kids just ate it up. Like, you never know how kids are going to respond to like barbershop. You always think it's going to be good, but I don't know, they could maybe think it's like not as cool as other things, but they just ate it up and loved it. And it was just such a cool experience. And so actually we were supposed to follow them, and it was on the set list. And then we went to the stage manager and them like, hey, would you mind switching? Can we go before you? Because like, if you haven't looked them up on YouTube, like what they did with Into the Unknown is just the tip of the iceberg to what they can just do by themselves. And so if you see that, like you're like, okay, yeah, I understand why anyone would want to follow that. And so we switched, and then we're like, hey, you know, do something together. And we didn't think a project would come up so soon. And KJ, I think, Happy Egg is like, hey, let's get the Spider Horse guys to try to do the Into the Unknown, and they did. Turned out great.
That's awesome. It's so cool that you're pushing the envelope in that way. And you seem to do it all as well, because your arrangements as well, that you guys sing. I mean, obviously Spider-Man springs to mind, but songs like Death of a Bachelor that you make work so well in barbershop. Do you have an arranger that you turn to, or do you use a variety of arrangers?
I think we've figured out that the best formula for us, we don't have an arranger in the group. There's pros and cons to that, but we always try and find an arranger that's going to bring the best out of that song. We don't have like one set guy that we're just like, all right, here's another song, here's another song. Most of our contemporary stuff is done by my roommate, Eric Winger. That's his world. You know, Aaron Dale, Theo Hicks, Brent Graham, David Wright, like Rasmus, depending on what the song is, whether it's like a musical theater thing, we tend to kind of think of Theo more in that light and just say, hey, do what you can with this. And he always does a phenomenal job, you know? So it really just depends. A lot of our jazz stuff is Jared Gravely, who's done some beatboxing on our albums. He's the bass of Highline Vocal Jazz, based out of New York City. If you haven't checked them out, please do, because they're amazing. But we tend to lean towards our arranger's strengths for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's probably sound advice for any group, isn't it? To work well with an arranger or a group of arrangers and do that. I know we're really proud now as well in BABS. We're starting to get some really talented arrangers coming through the ranks and training, and people awesome. Like Liz Garnett, Simon Arnott, Sam Hubbard. In fact, Sam Hubbard has just arranged Spider-Man as well, sung by Fifth Element. That's right, yeah, and great to hear such a different take on the exact same piece of music.
Awesome.
Yeah,
it was great.
It's so fun, and shout out to Brian. He's a good friend of ours. Yeah. Can't wait to hang out with him and all the other guys. And it's funny because our version of Spider-Man is not the first version of Spider-Man. Actually, After Hours had an arrangement of it before we did.
Theirs was okay.
Did not know that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, check it out. I think there's a YouTube video out there, but it's great to see all these different arrangements and perspectives, for sure.
Certainly, yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to ask as well. Someone asked early on, I'm just trying to check who it was, about the name Midtown. Is that, as what it sounds, is that a reference to New York City? Is it as simple as that?
You want to take this one, Christian? I think he does. He loves this question. It's his favorite question.
No, it's fine. I'll take it. So originally we bounced the name around a lot. Our original name, what we first were registered as, was Scallywags. And that is actually the bar that KJ, Anthony, and Nick met at for the first time with another random bass, just to see how the sound was. I obviously live in Florida, so I wasn't able to be there. But that's the bar where they met at, and they're like, hey, that sounds good. It's like Ruffians or Rapscallions or something. And I was the one who was vehemently against it. I was just like,
You weren't vehemently.
Yeah.
I was. I gave in. After many conversations, I gave in.
After the pancakes.
After the pancakes, yes.
That's
the Mickey Mouse shaped pancakes, I gave in. And I just said, I don't know. It has a weird, like, it sounds like a comedy quartet name. No offense, KJ. But hey, we registered it, and I think it was a couple weeks later, somebody had asked a friend, like, hey, what do you think about this name? And the first thing that they said was, oh, so you guys are like a pirate comedy quartet, right? And I think that was the moment where they're like, Okay.
It's like, Gary, can you please change our name in the registration now, please? Because literally our contest was like 2 weeks from then, and we were like, okay, if we're gonna change it, we gotta change it now.
So then, started another round of conversations. I threw out a couple names. I actually asked, I remember texting Nick and I said, where does Voices of Gotham rehearse in New York? And he had said Hell's Kitchen or Midtown, to be more specific. And then we started kind of bouncing around variations of Midtown. So first it was Midtown Boys, kind of based off of Sunny Boys. Then it was Midtown Men, but there's a group called Midtown Men already. And then we just settled on Midtown, just kind of looking at the history of names and whatnot that you kind of like think about. They're very short and sweet. Some of our favorite quartets like Keepsake and Platinum and Real Time, like just very short.
Clean.
Yeah, clean. So I think that's how we just settled on that name.
And also it was available.
And also, well,
right, yeah.
It was expiring. There was a quartet out of the Carolinas district called Midtown, and it was actually expiring the week that we were wanting to pick it up. And I think KJ had messaged one of the guys. They had maybe three, correct me if I'm wrong, KJ, I think they had 3 registered members, and the tenor, they had like 3 different tenors.
Right.
So it didn't seem like they were active. So we sent them a message and we asked if we had their blessing to I guess kind of take their name. but they were super nice and like, yeah, man, go ahead. So that's how that kind of happened.
And it was all such a tight timeline because we had to submit our final name by this date, and literally that name was expiring on this date. So it was literally hours between when that name finally expired. I called Eddie. I was like, as soon as that time hits, boom, please put that in, register us. So it expired. We put the name in, submitted it to Mid-Atlantic District, and it was changed. And if it had happened hours later, it wouldn't have worked. So it's crazy.
You'd be talking to scallywags.
You'd be interviewing scallywags right now.
Yeah, scallywags and nothing else changed. I don't even know if we'd still be successful.
That's right.
And I think that was part of the reason why we gravitated towards Midtown, because I think based on the vision that we had creatively, it just fit. Based on the style of music that we wanted to sing, the multiple genres that we wanted to attempt, where we were located, all that stuff, it just kind of just fit the image and the brand. And then part of that goes to what Anthony was talking about, wanting to create that identity before we hit stage. We wanted people to kind of have that idea already in their head. And I definitely think the name and also the logo, which was designed by Anthony, it really just helped solidify sort of that personality.
Yeah, Anthony, it's a super clever and cool logo. Works
so
well.
You are creative.
Yeah.
And
Well, to be fair,
how you came up with such a great logo?
Yeah, let's hear that story. Since Anthony designed the logo, I'd love to hear the story of how Anthony designed this logo.
What did I
from the top, Anthony?
Sure. So as with any good logo, it always takes inspiration from other things. So I was we were all searching for stuff on Google Images, and I saw something with the 2 other letters that it wasn't an M. It was 2 other letters, and it was the same effect, right? Like where the letter was created with a shadow. And I thought, oh, that would look cool with an M, and that's it. So I saw something else similar, not with those letters. And then I said, hey, let's do it. And then I built it out using just shapes like in PowerPoint or something.
There you go. Very cool. It's like,
so I didn't design it. I didn't conceive of the concept, but I did build it.
There you go. It's like the FedEx logo with a little arrow that's built into the
right.
The use of negative space. Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool. Oh, I think we're coming to the end now. We've had a few good questions come through, and I think we've managed to address most of them. There's one question that came through, and I think you just answered it talking about scallywags, and that was from a BABS member called Dick Knight, and asked, is there any chance of you guys being a comedy quartet? I suppose having KJ in the ranks, but I think you kind of answered that. So not
I
not
not
your
funny.
thing.
That's a possibility right now.
Yeah, fair enough.
I
Yeah.
I think we have potential. I mean, I think we with things like Spider-Man and Ghostbusters and
Yeah, it's not like we can't be fun.
yeah, no, I think it's just being ourselves. I mean, I think ourselves fun and
Yeah.
comedic.
Like if anything, we may do something, I don't know, like similar in the vein of like, Max Q. Like they're not like a comedy quartet, but they can be funny or do a parody or something like that.
Yeah. Well, look at Tim at in 1 second they're spitting bananas at the judges, the next second singing "Bring Him Home." You can
Exactly.
do it well. You can do anything, can't you? So
Exactly. And really, once the vocal quality starts dropping, you have to like raise the comedic, to try to hide that. And
Right.
that's kind of what we've been seeing with groups
Okay.
like, Vocal Spectrum and such.
nice.
I think we may have seen the last spitting bananas at people thing after the COVID situation. I don't think we'll ever see that again. We'll have to figure out something else for that.
Yeah, maybe not. We're nearly towards the end of our chat, guys. We've had a couple of questions that might round off the conversation quite nicely. One of them, I think, is specifically aimed for Anthony, but I think you could all give some input. What are your tips for how to bring out character and personality when singing lead? Any tips from the top?
Tips, yeah, for how to sing lead. I would say that's putting me on the spot. I think focusing on the lyric. I think that's one of the biggest things. Just thinking about the lyric that you're singing as opposed to thinking about tuning. That was a big challenge for me. I'm a tenor, and so I very much wanted to like tune all of my notes to what everyone else was singing. And so focusing on the lyrics and what you're singing is my most helpful trait. And then also taking ownership of the quartet. Again, as someone that was a tenor, I was used to fitting into the sound and not taking ownership of the song. So I would say ownership and being true to the lyric. And then the third thing I would say, which is just an in general thing, is know that every time you go out on the stage, everyone in the audience, contest included, wants you to succeed, right? You've never been to any barbershop contest or show where you're sitting there going, I really want this next quartet to sound terrible, right? Anyone that walks out, you go, I want them to be the best quartet I've ever heard. If you've never heard of them, you go, hopefully this is a quartet that's singing in the 90s. Yeah, I don't know anyone that would ever go, oh, I really hope this quartet is, not fun to watch. So know that for quartets, choruses, anything, when you go out on the stage, the audience, they're judging you, right? But they want you to succeed. So know that everyone really is cheering for you, whether or not they know you. So that's those three things I think are my tips.
I think for me, the audience can not only smell fear, but they can tell if you're not being yourself. And I think it's just all about authenticity. Never try and put a mask on. I think people appreciate when you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable.
It's hard, but
it's very hard. It's very hard. For anybody at any level. But we're all human, and we just want to be moved as an audience member.
Sure. I was going to say the other thing about singing lead that I work with Anthony on, and I think just in general is you want to communicate a message. As a lead singer, this is about communication. So you have to find the most authentic and genuine way to communicate that message. What's going to impact people? And those decisions that you make, whether it be sing something louder or quieter, or you change it up, or you add a little air, or all of those things that you would do vocally, you want to make the main purpose behind that communication and how it's communicated. So always keep that in mind as a lead singer, and listen to the best leads, but listen to the best artists that aren't barbershop singers, to gain and then create your own personality and your own style from all of those elements that you would take from others. But yeah, that would be my big thing: communication.
Awesome.
Totally.
And One other question that's come in just now was from one of our awesome university groups, and I think that answers a lot of the question. But they said, what advice would you give for young barbershoppers, youth barbershoppers? So specifically from a university group, I suppose all the above applies. But is there anything else you'd say, especially for the youngsters amongst us?
Kind of building off of what Tim just said, listening to the greats. I mean, I remember as a young kid, I mean, I'm only 28 years old, but when I first got into barbershop when I was 15, 16, all I did obsessively was listen to barbershop, listen to your favorite quartets and emulate everything. And listen to, like Tim said, listen to other people who aren't barbershoppers and see how they might, deliver a message. But then create your own idea of what that message would be for you. But yeah, I remember just whether in the car, in the shower, locked myself in my room for hours, just barbershop.
This may be the vocal pet in me, but when you're starting out, sing things that are appropriate for you. Like, don't go ahead and, just try to sing the longest post or the hardest music or anything like that. Start off nice, easy, free, because this is an instrument and everything you do has a cost. You just want to be able to pay it way down the road and not when you're our age, So just, start off slow, walk before you crawl, sing nice, easy, and then build up to the kind of charts and the kind of singing that you hear, the pros do and the gold medalists from years past do. That's all.
Yeah, I started out singing. Oh, I'm sorry, KJ.
No, go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I started out singing songs like Heart of My Heart and stuff like that. Those were the songs that I competed with in my first quartet. We did get last, but we did, I did sing Heart of My Heart. So, but yeah, just kind of like to that point, starting easy. And also, in addition to listening to everybody, like I said earlier, find your own voice and find your own style, and listen to people. Get coaching. If you get a group together, get coaching, but not from too many coaches. I think that's also another thing, is just pick a couple coaches that work for you and stick with that, and then sing everywhere you can. The one thing that my own quartet did was we sang everywhere. We sang at our university. We sang at luncheons. We sang at the mall. Anytime we had a gig offer, whether it was really, really cheap or even free, we would take it. And I would say that too. Just sing as often and as you possibly can. Sorry, KJ, go ahead.
No, that's awesome. That's exactly right. And the only thing I was going to say, and it may sound a little cliche, but we have a tendency in the barbershop world, and I know all of us did this when we were young, brand new barbershoppers. We saw these guys that were giants in the world of barbershop, these icons that we just idolized and loved and wanted to emulate, wanted to be like. And sometimes it just seemed, it seemed never will we ever be able to do what that quartet is doing or what that singer is doing. And I would just encourage young singers who are learning and trying to grow to just remember that every single one of those icons, every single one of the guys that you see on that stage that you think is just at the pinnacle of the game, they were those kids at one point. They were those kids listening to their idols and their icons and dreaming about being on the international stage and dreaming about winning a medal someday and doubting themselves and thinking, man, I'll never be able to be that. Or I'll never be able to do it like that. And the reality is, it's as cliche as it sounds, all of us had those same doubts, had those same questions, had those same idols, and it can happen to anybody really. And don't ever doubt yourself, and don't let yourself get intimidated by that, and embrace it and dive in head first and pursue those dreams. So
awesome, thank you. So just a fun one, very quick round robin. That the one quartet who for you was your icon quartet. I can start mine on Tim's recommendation. Actually, was Real Time, just to listen and study the tenor from Real Time.
Very nice.
Tim?
For me, it's two quartets, and I can't ever stray away. It's Keepsake and the Gas House Gang are my two, and I love them to this day.
Nick and Christian?
Mine is Keepsake.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's between Keepsake and Max Q for me.
So
Cool.
Tony.
Yeah.
Anthony?
Mine were it was Platinum and then Vocal Spectrum. Since being a Central States District quartet, I mean, I saw them all the time, shows, everything. So yeah, Platinum first, definitely, and then Vocal Spectrum.
Yeah, I should
I know
add
you hated us. I know you hated us. Thanks for kissing up, though.
I should add an honourable mention to Vocal Spectrum. They came over to the UK in 2004, was it? 5, yeah, and got to hang out with those guys and sing, and it was just an amazing experience. KJ, last but not least, who's your go-to quartet?
My 3, Keepsake is probably at the top for me. Platinum and Four Voices. Those were the ones that, when I was coming into barbershop, the ones that really pulled me in. So
cool. So there you go, Manchester University guys. Check out Keepsake. They seem to be the recommendation of the day.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, you can't go wrong by studying Keepsake, I don't think.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, awesome, guys. Can you just tell us what your plans are next and what have you got in the pipeline, just to end on?
Sure, yeah. So we actually just went through our calendar last night with all of our families, and it was kind of overwhelming because there's so much happening next year, which is obviously pending the world situation. But during this time, we've really tried to stay busy with music videos. We've tried to keep projects going, and the project that we're heading right now that we just finished up is our next album, which is a Halloween EP that's going to become available on September 18th. And it's a really special project for us for a lot of reasons. One, when Nick and Christian both, they were talking about the idea of, oh, should we do a Halloween or a holiday album or Christmas album or what should we do? And, they tossed around the idea. Nobody's done a Halloween album. So what if we did that? And we all have like our favorite Halloween movies and songs. And so we really embraced that project, and it has become a true labor of love for us. And we made sure that album was not just a Midtown thing, but we did so much collaboration with different artists, different people, performing on the songs. One of the songs we have has, I haven't counted it exactly, but it's like 25, almost 30 people on that one track, icons in the barbershop world, quartets that are up and coming, people that everybody knows about. It's an unbelievable project that we're really, really excited about. So yeah, that's going to be available on September 18th, and yeah, we're pretty pumped.
That's cool. So I guess my invitation to that got lost in the post, right?
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh. Oh, undeliverable mailer demon. Look at that. Wow. It's just never made it.
For those who don't know me, I am of course joking. Yeah, I look up to you guys so much. So yeah.
And one of the voices you'll hear on that album is actually Tim and Vocal Spectrum. So on the title track for the album. So it's a pretty cool track. We're excited.
It's so cool to be a part of it. Just an honor to be a part of it. And also, I got to hear it, and I heard the final cut, and it is ridiculously awesome. You have to get it. Like, that's not even a plug. That's just like me being honest. You've got to get it because it's awesome.
Cool. So what was the date, KJ? September
18th.
18th. The countdown is on. 10 days. 10 days to go. And that's from your website, I guess. And so
you can order from the website. It'll be available for digital purchase and download from Apple Music and iTunes and all that. We only printed like 200 copies of this album, and of hard copies, and they're all going to be limited edition. They're all going to be signed. And so we made them kind of exclusive to Kickstarter, the people who kind of helped us fund the project from the beginning. And I think we've got like, I don't know how many left, Christian, like 100 or something like that. So those 100 albums are only going to be available on our website here in the next couple of days, and it's only going to be for the next like 5 days, because after that, all of them are getting shipped out, and it's only digital from there. So I'm going to be on it. I'm going to be checking the website
every half an hour. So
we'll be posting on social media about it coming up soon.
Cool.
Yes.
That's awesome. And obviously then your next big trip abroad, I guess, is over to the UK in May. So people over here in the UK, make sure you get to the BABS convention, not just to have amazing BABS convention parties, but to see these guys in the flesh as well and hear them do their thing. So you won't be disappointed if you've never seen them before. So.
May is going to be a crazy, crazy month for us. We'll be headlining the Snobs convention. The first weekend in May, I think, is the Snobs convention, right? Yes. And then the BABS, we'll be doing BABS at the end of May. And then in June, we're going to Ireland to do their stuff. And it's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be insane.
Just
Are you just moving to Europe for
pretty much
just move to Europe for a month and a half?
I actually might be staying there for like a month.
Do
You
it.
should.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of people that would happily show you around and make you feel at home. So yeah, do it.
Yes,
You're
indeed.
more than welcome. Right, well, thank you so much for joining us, all 5 of you. Tim, it was an added bonus having you with us as well. But no, thank you. We're really excited. It's great for us to get to meet you a little bit virtually before you come over in May. And I'm sure everyone is super excited to meet you in person in May as well. So thank you for taking the time out of your schedules. Anthony, literally in your office at work. Thank you for thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you, Alan, for hosting this and for inviting us. And we can't say thank you enough to BABS for even inviting us. So we're really, really excited about that trip.
It's our pleasure. And just as well to thank all of our people that have been watching online and asking the questions as well. Thank you to those people. You will be able to watch this afterwards if you weren't able to catch it live tonight. It'll stay on the BABS YouTube channel. And yeah, thank you for all your contributions out there in the world. And again, thank you to the 5 of you for joining us. It's been really good.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
Good night.
Take care, brother.
You too.